Imagine being Capablanca. You just lost one of the most important matches in your life. And you probably lost it because you were too relaxed and you underestimated your opponent. And now your opponent agreed to have a rematch, but it's only talks. And when you actually try to have a rematch, he doesn't really want a rematch, and he says that he's gonna have a match against some gentleman named Efim Bogoljubov. Now, this guy, a pretty respectable chess player, he was worthy of some contention, but he was a contender, right? He won tournaments. He actually came in first in front of Capablanca, and also tied with Alekhine on some occasions. But you're Jose Raul Capablanca. I mean, come on, right? You're probably one of the greatest players of all time, and well, the second greatest endgame player of all time. You still want a match, and you still feel like you're worthy, and you grind for it, but you never receive it. And to rub salt into the wound, Alekhine chose to play Efim Bogoljubov for less money than he initially stated, according to that 1922 chess congress or something that established by Capablanca to set that $10,000 fee. And you also say that Capablanca only set that fee that high because he wanted to avoid playing matches. Now imagine being Capablanca in that scenario. Luckily we're not, and we can enjoy this from a distance. Now, I forgot the scene, but we're here, okay? That was from other videos. But we have the first game, and Alekhine has the white pieces, so he's gonna open with a Slav defense. I mean, Bogoljubov chose the exact defense he could have played. Obviously, a Queen's Gambit, declined or accepted, or really anything else from the D5, D4. Now, why the title of the mini title of this video is just bombs? Because Bogoljubov was one of the most aggressive players that played in a World Chess Championship match, and from the get-go he wanted to just rip the head of Alekhine. And we have just a really nice and interesting game right here. Now, believe it or not, this position has actually happened 26 times up until this date, and Knight g5 has been played the most times because it makes the most sense, right? You want to have some sort of an attack on the king, and black really is not thriving, to say the least. Now, today we have such moves as Queen e7, but the only move that has won a good amount of games was a6, but that's not because of the move. It's mainly because of the players that managed to play this move. The players were better, but also h6 has good drawing chances. Now, the engine recommends, at least on a low depth, Queen to e7, but without getting too much into theory of this variation, we have f6, and that's the blunder of the game. And now this allows a nice continuation. E takes on f6, and here knight takes on f6, right? You don't want to take with the g pawn. But here, just Alekhine continues his development, gets his bishop on this nice diagonal. Bogoljubov tries to kick out his knight, but just bishop check. You try to take, I take, and now, I mean, this is not really working. You get forked. You want to save yourself. You bring the queen, no problem. The queen slides in. Now it's defended. Okay, you want to move the rook, fine. Bishop to f4, and now there's no more escaping for this king. I mean, just look at this, how many squares are being controlled, so you have to make some room. But now bishop slides back, and you're ready to bring in the rooks or just give some checks, and that's it. The king tries to come back and attack the knight, but now it's too late because you give a check with the bishop and you just castle. And that's it. I mean, there's nothing else to worry about here as black. You just chop some pawns, trade some pieces, bring in the rook, and then just give a check, and black resigns. Because, I mean, let's say captures, you can give a check here. I mean, if the king tries to stay here, this is just made in one, Queen e4. And if the king tries to, well, go back, you can now play a check, and that's it. I mean, right? You can even take here, you can give even another check, and this is fine. Everything is fine here. So Alekhine wins a nice first game, but Bogoljubov, as I said, he will put pressure on Alekhine, and now he has the white pieces, so Alekhine is playing with the black pieces, and they play a Nimzo Indian defense, the Spielman variation. Now I've actually had a similar game to this. I didn't really play F3 in that game, but F3 is a perfectly reasonable move, and it has been actually played a lot at the top level because it takes away these squares from the knight and you're fighting for the center, and you can now play E4 and just have a really nice position. You can now play bishop F4, you can just develop normally, queen goes out to B6, putting some pressure here, maybe knight A4, so you're gonna play rook D1. Now you're gonna try to hit something, and by the way, this move doesn't really work because just queen c2, and if you try to take, well, rook b1, and that's it. So you cannot win a pawn, so you have to go back with your knight to guard against this, because this was the move that was coming in. That's why the rook came to d1. And now on knight to e2, right, you're trying to move forward, and d6, now finally stopping everything. But you see, after the bishop comes back, now pinning the knight, well, black is really passive, and you're gonna try to kind of untangle here, but white is just coming forward. And look at it, just like in my game. I don't know if you've seen that video or not yet. In that game, I also put pressure on this d6 pawn, and that's exactly what Bogoljubov does. And Alekhine tries to defend, but he can only defend for so long, because now simply e5, you break up the defense of the knight. Now the knight is under attack, you move the knight with the tempo, okay, queen backs up, and now you try to push forward, but it doesn't work like that. Castles, and now you can try to attack me, but I have queen takes on a5. I'm just picking up opponent, that's it. You can try to come at me, you can try to threaten to checkmate me, but rook g4, rook f2, sorry, rook f2, and now there's no more mate. Okay, you come forward, I just take. You come forward again, I sneak in with the queen. What a nice move by Bogoljubov, defended by the rook. And now knight f6 tries to stop that with an attack, but just bishop takes f4. Nice spot by Bogoljubov, now attacking the queen. And if you try to take the queen, I'm taking first with check, and then I'm taking your queen. So he tries check and picks up the bishop like this, but now the queen just slides in here. And you know, a couple moves later, I mean, you have to kick out the queen, you manage to win the rook, and then, you know, a little bit of time later, you know, Bogoljubov manages to pick up a nice win here. And you know, really the rest of the match was kind of like this. Well, they just went on crazy games. For example, Alekhine has the white pieces in this position, and they play actually a Slav defense Czech variation, Wiesbaden variation. These names are just killing me. And you know, he's Alekhine is just looking for some pressure here in the center. He's gonna look to play e4, and that's exactly what he does. And here he just goes e4, he goes crazy. But Bogoljubov tries to back up, Alekhine does the same. And now we have knight takes on c4, and I just like white's position here. I mean, it's looking really good. No b5 and just a lot of space in the center. Black has potential, he's not lost, but he's got to play a lot of right moves in a row, and that's difficult. And when you go c5, that's even more difficult, because now just takes, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, and b4. And Alekhine manages to kick back his opponent, exchange the queens, and just enter a really nice endgame, where this knight is just I mean, this knight is really restricted, is gonna be forced back this way, and then you also don't have any other squares for the knight. And this knight maneuver was really nice, because you're gonna move in here at some point, but until then you gotta secure the c5 square. And now that the knight is gone, you can play king f2. Okay, the knight reroutes finally, but now you can just play the rook d1, and you don't care about anything. You don't care about the knight coming into the center, because you can just bring in the other rook, and you don't care about the knight taking this bishop because this bishop actually does not, have any advantage for black. And now you back up. You don't allow black to take the bishop. You have now an extra move, and you simply bring in your knight. You move forward with your other knight. You're attacking this pawn, and now b6 is almost forced. And b6, if Bogoljubov would have played this, he would have had some sort of chance maybe to draw this. Knight b5, and there are some complications here where knight c6 is possible, but you might get an active rook. But instead of that, Bogoljubov just that doesn't go b6. He just goes rook a to b8, and now he's completely lost after this move, knight to b5, because now after knight takes and this whole variation, you lose a pawn anyway, and now you don't have any more counterplay, and you just lose a knight. I mean, the knight was supposed to be lost, because here if you don't lose the knight, then you're gonna get forked. So okay, the knight is supposed to be lost, but you lose the knight anyway, and there's just too much pressure here. You're slowly getting booted back, and there's nothing that you can do. I mean, white just advances slowly, really no trouble. You pick up the bishop. Now your bishop is stronger. You bring in the bishop, you rotate the rook around, and you just find a nice win here. Really next game, Bogoljubov has obviously colors are reversed. Bogoljubov has the white pieces, and he again plays a Nimzo Indian Spielman variation. We have kind of the same thing with this early e4 action. But now Alekhine kind of goes on a rampage here and manages to pick up a pawn. But this is still theory, kind of. I mean, there are no games in the database, but I'm sure the players were at least okay and at least pretty familiar with the opening as far as my opinion goes. But yeah, I mean, this following position is just crazy. e4, and Bogoljubov basically sacrificed the pawn for rapid development, and Alekhine really is under a lot of pressure here, but he is just in time to defend everything. But I mean, Bogoljubov has a really nice lead in development, and he manages to consolidate that. And just again, Bogoljubov really doesn't like castling, so he's not gonna need to castle, but you don't need to castle in this position. And just like in the other game, we see this pressure against the rook. The rook can now not go here, and this is a lurking threat. Also, the king is cut off, and Bogoljubov manages to achieve a really nice position. Actually, e5 now is possible. I don't know why Alekhine didn't choose to play that, because now the bishop just is allowed in, and now you have even less chances of achieving a draw. But I mean, the chances were slim anyways, and just like in the other games, white slowly marches forward. There's no need to rush anything. f5, knight is booted back. This, you're now getting in with the rook, so you try to stop that, but the rook swings over. You try to stop that, but the rook swings over again, and now, I mean, it's impossible to do anything. This rook is basically paralyzed, also tied down to the defense of this pawn. You try to chop something, but the rook just enters the position at last and just demolishes everything inside. And it's actually a really nice thing now. This is almost checkmate, because let's say you go here, this is checkmate. So if you try to go here, this is check, and then this is checkmate. And obviously if you take with the king, you lose everything, so there's no point in covering that. And now Alekhine won the next two games, but he regards this game number 8 as one of his best games ever played. Now, d4, knight f6, c4, b6, knight c3, bishop b7, f3. And we have a similar position to the last game, and we have now d5, cd5, and e4. And basically we have now a structure here that is taking a lot of space, right? You have a lot of space here, but it also is a little bit fragile, and therefore e6 is played, freeing up the bishop. And here knight to d7, just putting everything together before you go out. Kick out the bishop, go c5. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now the king is a little bit open. Bishop b2, and you go in queen c7. So all normal developing moves, but this move f4 really weakens everything in the position another time. So we have knight f6 and now knight to g3. You try to come in behind the pawns, and now h5. And here queen e2 is played, but now h4. And I didn't mention the color of the sides, but I think you can know that Alekhine had the black pieces and he played knight h5 in this position. Just a double attack on this pawn, forcing a defense. Now you have two ways of defending this. You can either go bishop c1 or push f5. This is obviously indirectly defending this because you're not really defending that. So knight f4 is still possible. But what Bogoljubov did, he played queen g4, which is just atrocious, because now Alekhine castles long, and all of a sudden you bring the rook, but now king slides out of the way and you prepare a monstrous break here. f5, e5. And you cannot close the position with d5 because of c4. And you're forced back, and now you know what the crazy thing is? You don't give any checks just yet. You go first h3, and this completely destabilizes the position. If you take with the queen, knight f4. If you take with the pawn, well, still knight f4, but you can go for check first. Let's say knight f2, and now knight f4. Because now this is pinned, this is unable to take, this is under attack. You have to move the king, and now, well, you can just play g6 and break this. You have, again, all of the options in the world here as black. But what happened in the game was bishop c2, and now we have check right away, knight f2 and g6. So just like in the variation that I showed you with bishop e2, f takes g6, rook to g8, and now, I mean, just like I showed you in the example. Here actually knight g3 ends the game on the spot, and that's why Alekhine was proud of this game, because of this move knight g3 check. I should have mentioned this as a tactic, but now I mean you can see how this is actually checkmate. Funny enough, this is actually checkmate. I mean, you're taking away everything here, and there's nothing else left. So Alekhine plays a really nice game, and actually after this game he leaves for a congress, for a FIDE congress, and comes back 2 weeks later and smashes Bogoljubov. Now, to his credit, Bogoljubov does win 2 other games. That was his last attempt at a comeback, but in the end the format was first to 6 wins and 15 points, and Alekhine just wins with 15.5 points. And you know, I mean, overall, while doing the outro, I'm gonna just show you this in the background. This was the last win of the match. It was a Ruy Lopez Morphy defense, and Alekhine played this f6 variation. Now I've seen this f6 being played at the top level before. There was I think an Esipenko game that was really nice in this variation, and Bogoljubov was an aggressive player and he had his merits, but in the end Alekhine really was the best player in the world at that time. Even though Capablanca wanted a rematch, it was clear that Alekhine was the better player, and he also won a lot of tournaments with Capablanca in them. So Capablanca was really the next challenger, but he was not necessarily better as Alekhine. I'm not trying to make that claim, by the way, as Alekhine finally puts Bogoljubov in the final mating net, and you cannot stop anything anymore. So yeah, this was a nice match, but I think everybody wanted to see Alekhine against Capablanca, but that never happened. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I think this video was more fast-paced because the games were really attacking, and I didn't really want to lose that much time on the conversions. So I just show you like the opening, because most of the games were actually won out of the opening, or out of like the structures that did arise out of the openings. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you like this style of video better, you can tell me. But I'm just doing it just how I believe that it should be done. Anyway, I see you on the next one. Kowalsky out.